Hello and welcome to my Assassin's Guide for Assassin's Creed Shadows. I will say that the first 3 minutes of this video will be my own gear as well as my setup as far as my skills. So if you would like to skip to just the tips and tricks part, go to around the 337 mark in this video and you will see everything that you need besides my gear and stuff. If you want to see it and pay attention to kind of see what I run, then by all means, here we go. So the first thing I want to talk about is my gear, and honestly the first and most important thing is that always make sure your gear is on the same level as you. Now what I mean by this is, as I am level 28 in this clip right here, I should not be running anything that's below level 25 or so. I am teetering on the edge on a couple of these things, but for the sake of just being or not wanting to go back to my camp, these items that I have right here are about what you should be looking for as far as your level. If your stuff is not up to level with what you are, you will be getting bullied by the enemies that are even slightly higher level than you. Just remember that. It's a kind of a simple thing. This is just kind of my setup if you want to pause and look. I'm not going to talk about it too much to waste y'all's time. But the first thing I want to talk about for as far as the mastery system is my tools tab. Now, if you pay attention to the tool tab, you will see that I am mostly a kunai focused person. I believe that the kunai is one of the best weapons or best tools in the game besides the smoke bomb itself. And honestly, as you can see from my skills tab, I pretty much follow that same level of logic. The thing I run for the most part is the kunai abilities, all which give you extra armor piercing abilities and overall damage, as well as the perks that give you extra space in your tool bag so you're able to carry more. Pretty self-explanatory. This is what I run. Remember, you don't have to follow this. This is just an example as someone who primarily runs the assassin as opposed to the samurai. When we get into my second tab, this is the Tonto tab, which I'm sure I just mispronounced. The most important things that I run, of course, are the Shadow Piercer ability, which is just another ability that you can use to animation cancel as well as other things. I don't really run this weapon that much by itself, but I do run the two passives that are offered on the far left side of the tree, which the first one is Armor Piercing, which 18% is a fat chunk. And the second one, which I will show in a second, is extra damage when it comes to a backstabbing. What this can be added to is assassinations as far as other things as well. I don't really spend too many points on this one as I don't really run this weapon more than anything, but I do use the passives on the far left side of the tree. When we look at our next tab, this is of course going to be the Assassin tab. The most important things in this tab, of course, are the increased damage on rollable enemies, which is the enemies where you can hit their dodge and make them go yellow, or you cast an ability on them, as well as the ones that give us more points towards killing enemies with more health bars. This, of course, is the most important tab as far as the assassin's playstyle goes, as it allows you to unlock things like the door assassination, the double assassination, and the ability to assassinate the bigger guys, as well as the eagle eye, all of which are things that we are going to use all throughout this video. So, as of course, you can pause and look what I selected, and I'm not going to get too into it to waste y'all's time, but that is my Assassin's tab. As far as the last tab we're going to talk about today, this is the Katana tab. This is probably the second most important as opposed to the Assassin's tab, depending on what your main melee weapon is to run in any situations. So of course we're going to run the 2 points on the far left one, which gives us 9% flat damage boost to all melee weapons. And then the next thing we're going to run is the 2 abilities in the middle, the first of which is called Tidal Wave. Now what Tidal Wave is the one that I use to pretty much animation cancel and get myself out of sticky situations, just like with the Tonto abilities. And also the ability called Eviscerate, which is pretty much, in my case, used defensively only. We're also going to want points in the Swift Step, which allows me to immediately counterattack people that I am able to parry, as well as the other one called Counterattack, which builds off of that. Now, as we get into the actual tips and tricks part, the first one I want to talk about, of course, is Eagle Vision and why it should always be your first action. Eagle Vision is one of those things that we have a couple points in the Assassin tab, and I see no reason why it shouldn't always be the first thing you do. Why should it always be the first thing you do? Well, at the end of the day, you are an assassin, and the most important part of living as an assassin in this game is surviving to kill your next target. Eagle's Vision, in simplest terms, gives you the best way to approach situations and gives you a way to kind of lay out the map or lay out the area in a way where you can see where the enemies are moving, where they're standing, so on and so forth. So you can kind of plan your attack before you actually get into actually attacking things. Eagle Vision isn't something that I think should ever be, like, you should always be using it when you're playing the assassin character, and I see no reason why you shouldn't constantly be popping it while you're assaulting castles or whatever else you're doing. For our second tip, I want to talk about the most useful tool for clearing single bar enemies, and that is the kunai. Now, as most of you saw, or if some of you didn't watch my earlier part of the video, there is a section where I had a bunch of points into the kunai simply because I believe it is one of the best items for silently clearing out some of the lower tier enemies in the game. It doesn't really have much of a use against the super armored samurai, which, I mean, at the end of the day, samurai have a ton of armor, so it's kind of hard to just one-shot them anyway, unless you have your assassination super high leveled up. But the kunai, in my opinion, is the best way to clear these kind of single health bar enemies that don't really do anything. They're kind of just sentries more than anything else. And I do think that it is the most useful tool to spend a few points in just so you can kill these guys with ease. Also, as a side note, make sure you go and pick up your kunais after you use them, as more often than not, you are able to pick them off the bodies that you shoot them into, especially if you hit them in the head. The next thing we want to talk about is more of a kind of how I approach castles entirely, and that is clear the outer edge first. Now, what I mean by this is both as the castle as a whole, you want to clear the outer edge and kind of push inward, and in each area you're in, you're going to want to clear the outer edge of these specific little areas in an attempt to get to the guy that's in the middle. In this case, we're trying to target the samurai that's in the middle, and I am able to abuse their vision as well as what they're doing to assassinate the guys on the outer edge before I actually go in. This also relies on the idea that we're going to be using the environment to our advantage in certain things, such as the ability to whistle and other placements that will allow you to move in and out of cover without much of an issue. Something I want to add to this part is the idea that your different colors for like when you're spotted, what each one means. White means that they kind of saw you briefly and they're kind of going to investigate. Yellow means they are actively investigating. And of course, red means you have been seen completely and they will be coming after you. The next thing I want to talk about is the Tonto and how it's one of the most valuable weapons in your kit. Now, most of you that, like myself, I didn't even realize you could equip it till a couple hours in, but it allows you to unlock one of the most useful abilities for clearing enemies that are right next to each other, which is the double assassination. The Tonto is actually also a very useful weapon just as a secondary melee weapon, as the abilities that you can use, such as Shadow Rush and the other one whose name I can't remember, but it essentially allows you to automatically dodge, is also extremely valuable in just how you approach these situations. The Tonto is, at the end of the day, just something that's going to give you a couple buffs, but it can also be used as kind of a death by 1,000 cuts weapon, which is a nice kind of secondary to have if you're using the katana like myself, which the katana is more of a versatile weapon. The Tonto is more of like a speed in and out and dodge, as opposed to katana's kind of balanced attack. But either way, an invaluable weapon. Honestly, something I plan on using a little bit more as I get into the level 30s. The next thing we want to talk about is abusing the AI's ability to path towards you. Now, this is something that has been in the Ubisoft Assassin's Creed games for a long time, and I even think that I had a little bit of this in Star Wars Outlaws. This is, simply put, the ability to abuse how the AI function when they see someone get killed. Now, as you can see from this clip as it's about to come up, I'm going to assassinate this guy. And in simplest terms is what I'm saying by this tip is that we're going to see that they spot me and then they see that guy get killed. So what I'm going to do is try to follow a loop parallel to them, kind of get to where that guy just was and kill his buddy. And then I'm going to loop back around and kill him. So what you end up doing is the enemy ends up where you were and you're going to end up where he was. And what it's going to do is it's going to give you a position advantage as well as the ability to just kind of kill the second guy because he's going back to the spot that his AI is programmed to go to. As with most Assassin's Creed games, the AI is kind of derpy, and this is no exception. Make sure you abuse it, as it is always funny to watch and super useful. The next thing you want to talk about, which is something that I think is a huge point that I've always been kind of this player when I play the Assassin's Creed games, because I've been playing them since the beginning, is don't hesitate if you have a guaranteed kill. So as you can see by my Eagle Vision usage a second ago, I am completely surrounded. I am surrounded on all sides by Guardians, which are the guys they send after you when you're wanted, as well as a ton of enemies and a little mini boss enemy. So what I mean by don't hesitate if you have a guaranteed kill is when you enter these castles and kind of these main quest areas, the idea is you're usually only there to kill a single enemy. So what I'm trying to say is don't hesitate if you have a kill. It doesn't matter if you run away after you kill him. Like, I realize at this point, oh no, I'm out. But what that does is that's the last guy I needed, and now I'm able to go get the legendary chest. And if it's a main quest, you're able to just leave at that point. There's nothing that's really stopping you. So don't hesitate if you have a guaranteed kill on some of these mini bosses. I know it's tempting not to, but you got to do it. So this one's kind of something that is kind of a side tip because you can't force the game to become nighttime yet as of this recording, which today is March 25th, 2025. So as of right now, you cannot change the time to night, but you can always make it a habit to attack at nighttime if you are so inclined to do so. Like if you notice it's about to be nighttime and there's a castle you want to clear, nighttime and the lighting in this game makes assassinating targets way easier, and you'll get what I'm saying in about 10 seconds when you see the next part of this clip. As the way that light functions in this game is when you are in the shadows or in a part that's not lit, you are pretty much invisible to the AI, which further reiterating on the point that we're abusing the AI's kind of derpiness. Look at what I'm able to do in the dark. I can't do that during the day. So if you're able to attack these defended positions at night, which most of these big main quests do put you in nighttime, do it if you can. And one of our last tips we're going to talk about is groups can be manageable with the right approach. Now, what I mean by this is that you should be learning how to master a single melee weapon as something that kind of is your backup weapon as an assassin. Me personally, I am a katana abuser. I love the katana. I think it feels super smooth in this game, but you should be able to parry and you should be able to use your abilities to kind of save yourself in these situations. So what this tip essentially comes down to is you need to be able to wield the katana if you are planning to attack some of these later castles. As sometimes I will say that the idea of fighting a huge group isn't always avoidable, and honestly it kind of makes it fun to like every once in a while to actually get able to use your katana skills and pull them out. So really it's just mastering dodging, we're mastering parrying, and we're kind of using our abilities to take those windows when we can. And of course, when we get into the last tip of today's video, which is repositioning it is better than dying, to embrace Jack Sparrow and his most famous quote, in my opinion, from the third movie, we should embrace the most bold and exciting strategy of a pirate, which is get away when you can. So now what I mean by this tip, of course, is there's no shame in repositioning. Honestly, more than anything, if you find yourself getting overwhelmed, the best thing you can do is run and reposition. This game is very lenient with the AI and how they kind of track you. So if you get out of their vision for more than, I want to say, 15-20 seconds, they will pretty much completely reset and you will be good to go. Now, as always, I hope you all enjoyed this video. We will be covering the samurai in a video in a couple days or so because I don't really have much gameplay of them. But if you enjoyed and are looking forward to that with me, make sure you subscribe if you're here to the end. Of course, thanks for watching. And as always, I hope y'all have a great rest of your day or night or whatever. Love y'all. Bye.